In October 2002, Jason McCartney was 13 years into his AFL career. 13 years of professional football and not a single surgery. Not one. Then October 12th happened.
The sheer force of the explosion when it hit me, I thought I'd been shot. And playing AFL at that elite level for 12 or 13 years to that stage, never been hit that hard. Blinded by the flash, which obviously is the explosion. Deafening the sound, perforated eardrums instantly.
202 people died that night, hundreds more were injured, many never recovered. Burns to over 50% of his body, shrapnel injuries, lungs damaged. Most people with Jason's injuries spent 3 to 4 months just getting out of hospital. He was back on the football field in 5 months. How did he do it? And what can the rest of us learn from someone who had every reason to stop, but he didn't? This is the show that unlocks potential for everyday life. This is Performance Intelligence. Jason, before we get into it, I would like to give context on who you are and what the journey looked like before Bali. You were drafted at 16 years. That's young. You played for Collingwood, Adelaide and North Melbourne. 2 grand finals that slipped away in remarkable circumstances. I think if you ever wrote a book, the title would have to be The One That Got Away. For our audience who aren't AFL fans, what I want to know is, who is Jason McCartney, the footballer?
Yeah, it was this amazing pathway. I grew up in country Victoria, so the draft was very different then. The draft age now in the AFL is 18 years of age. It was 16 then, which I was glad it was then, because I had played 2 years of senior football already, was ready to go, played through all the rep sides for Victoria and Vic Country back then, so got this great opportunity. And I seemed to follow, I was a mad keen Essendon supporter, so when my name got called out by Collingwood, it was shock horror, because they'd actually just beaten Essendon in a grand final that year. So I started at the club post the Collingwood premiership win, which I think that was the first premiership for 32 years. So 4 years there, transferred to Adelaide, and then like you said, play a handful of games and miss out. And then the next year I crossed to North Melbourne. And the heartbreak there was we made a grand final at North Melbourne, and it was against Adelaide. So we were the best side that year, and unfortunately didn't get it done in the game that matters. So the following year was all about redemption. We bounced back North Melbourne really well. I'd played every game. And the prelim final in AFL terms, the week before the AFL grand final, very, very late in the last quarter, I had this poor spoiling technique sometimes on some bigger opponents, a bit round arm, and I was late, which I knew I would be. I didn't know I was going to whack my opponent across the nose though. And I knew straight away it was I was in strife, and look, I got rubbed out for 4 weeks. Ironically, I never ever served the 4 games as such. The only real game I missed was the AFL grand final. At that stage, we could serve them in the preseason, so I served the other 3 games in the preseason. But I missed the grand final, and ultimately was a premiership win. So I knew I was in strife on the Friday night after I got reported, but it probably hadn't sunk in that I'd missed a premiership until the next day, because what was happening the next day, we were playing Brisbane, we won, and it was Essendon playing Carlton the next day. I think that Saturday afternoon at 4:45 when the siren rang there, and Carlton had done the unthinkable. Essendon were the best side by a mile, red hot favourites. Carlton got up by a point. That's probably when the dagger went through my heart, because I realised not only have I missed out on playing in another grand final, we lost the year before, I think this one's going to be a premiership. So look, I'm so glad we did though. When you're in that situation, it's about the team, and obviously the disappointment of losing the year before. Just so thankful and so grateful that we obviously went on to win the next week, albeit I wasn't part of it, even though I played every game that year.
Where did you watch that game from, and how did you feel?
I didn't sit down. I stood up in the race the whole day. I think with our dietitian at the time, I just couldn't bear sit still, and I didn't want to be around too many people either. So, when we saluted, you sort of rush out on the ground, but that's when the enormity hits you, because I'm in my suit. We used to wear the suits back then, not so much now, but my teammates and the staff were amazing to try and involve me as much as possible. But as we know, in AFL, it was only the players that played on the day that get the medallion, and they're the ones up on the dais with holding the cup up. And I'm just mingling with the rest of the non-selected players and the staff, and the euphoria of all that, but obviously the great disappointment personally that I missed out.
At that time, if someone had come up to you and said, look, young fella, what doesn't break you makes you. You're going to learn resilience from this. You're going to go on and have a great career. You'd absolutely want to punch him in the balls. But
yeah, all the well wishes. It's great. And about the next opportunity and things like that. But really, in football sense, the next year we got back to a prelim final. I had my best year of AFL football the next year. I always had this ability to bounce back from some obstacles and challenges along the way. And yeah, next year personally was an outstanding year. Like I said, my best by far, but we got beaten in the preliminary final, which was the year of the Olympics, and the season finished earlier and we were knocked out. So beyond that, over those next couple of years, we were, as a team, we'd been a great team, really successful, always around the mark. We were just starting to come off a bit. So that opportunity to play in the grand final again and right some wrongs never eventuated.
You had some pretty amazing players. Go back to that North Melbourne squad. Yeah. Carey, Archer, Stevens. Remember watching you, testing my memory, mate, and also researching you. You were known as a player. You had good skills, maybe not silky skills, but you pushed yourself, you learned, you evolved. I know players who played with you would say that you really got the best out of yourself. Yeah, well, in the end I did. Like when I started, I was pick 4 in a national draft, so I was the probably the big fish in the small pond, and then you get in the system and you're competing as 17-year-old against men and you're learning your way, and probably slowly but surely over time I'd went into the system with so much confidence, but then it was just eroded with whether it be non-selection, just setbacks along the way. And it got to the end of my time at Adelaide. I'd had 7 years at both Collingwood and Adelaide. I only played about 75 games and I thought I was done. Didn't think I'd get another contract, was contemplating what I was going to do outside of football in Adelaide. I loved coaching. I'd play in the SANFL over there and things. And I had Dennis Pagan, who was the coach in North Melbourne, pretty eager to get me to come across. And I suppose third chance, really settled well in the North Melbourne side. And as you said, I was surrounded by so many great players, which was at the Crows as well in my time at Collingwood, but older, more mature, knew exactly what had to be done, and I had a coach who believed in me. And I suppose the power of the mind and positive thinking. Dennis Pagan came to my house at the time in Adelaide in West Lakes. He walked in, he had an A4 sheet of paper, and I remember it like it was yesterday. He just had all these things that's good about me. And like I said, I lost a lot of belief. That resonated with me. And he also said to me, you come, you do the work. Pre-season, I'll give you the opportunity to play. You got to earn the right, but you do. I won't play you for a week in the practice matches and then drop you to the reserve grade. You'll get a month or 6 weeks, but you got to do the work first. He was true to his promise. I got to work. I got that opportunity, and slowly but surely, wasn't always smooth, but there was some positive signs, and slowly but surely, I rebuilt a lot of that belief that I'd lost, and that it ended up I had that 6 years at North Melbourne, which was an amazing time, and in the end, it allowed me to get the best out of myself. So I walked away when I finished. There was no premiership, but I could look myself in the mirror and comfortably say, well, I got the best out of what talent I had to offer. And in the end, in life, that's how you should assess yourself. I was never going to be the greatest player, but I worked out quickly I could play an important role in a really good team and just get to work. So interesting you're talking about beliefs. How would you now work with a young male or female AFL footballer or any athlete, any performer, and help them change beliefs based on your story, your knowledge, your experience?
Well, it's changed a lot since the period I played through where, let's be honest, the majority of the feedback you got was negative, or what we would call now room for improvement or an opportunity. So even the language of things. And you would get some positive clips, but it was more heavily weighted about what you weren't doing well. And we know, and you work in this space full time, so we know the science behind that. It's a bit of the self-fulfilling prophecy. You hear enough about what you're doing. If it's negative, that's how you're going to assess yourself. If it's really positive affirmation, it can just change the mindset. So we know, and our coaches focus on it. Yes, you've got to sit down and you'll show opportunities to learn, but there'll be more of them in one-on-one meetings, not the format of the group session where there'll be more the team dynamics of how the team can get better, but then reinforcing positive behaviours and positive actions. That's the big thing. And I know this stuff and know it inside out. I've learned it, but I must admit with our players, And in my role, it's not me coaching them, but I watch it and it is that. I still fall back in the trap a bit with I've got two sons, and with the boys with their sport and my younger son's progressing quite well, I probably fall back a little bit to the old school. Yeah, the old school, how I was coached. So it is interesting, but it's I suppose, and our coach talks about it, Adam Kingsley, a little bit, it's water what you want to grow. So that positive affirmation is really important, but they need to be, when there's things that need to be worked on, you need to work with that athlete and you need to work on solutions and put a plan in place and show that athlete how you're going to help them get better.
Your eyes light up when you talk about growing up in the country. You know, I'm a fellow bush basher. I grew up in country New South Wales. I'll often say this when I'm working with an exec team. Like I was born in Wagga, cultured in Glennis and Yass, and really rounded out in Dubbo and Tasmania. And people don't know whether to laugh or give you a hug and say, are you okay? I would not swap that upbringing for anything. Tell me about where you grew up. Tell me about what that taught you.
Yep. So I grew up in Nil in country Victoria, which is about 60 kilometres from the South Australian border. It's absolutely spot on halfway between Melbourne and Adelaide. So as a kid growing up, we'd spend as much time in Adelaide as we would in Melbourne. But it was just, we went on a farm. There's only 2,500 people there. Dad had his own business. He was a plasterer by trade. And mum would do a bit of hairdressing, but helped dad out a lot. So 2 younger brothers. So like I said, I was gone by the time I was sort of 16 and a half and moved to Melbourne, but you just wouldn't change that upbringing for the world. Like just the freedom of small country town, we'd be out all the time. Like we'd go spotlighting, so a lot of shooting. You'd play your sport on the weekends. Predominantly it was just AFL, and there was cricket, tennis, bit of basketball. But yeah, out on the weekends, friends that had farms, fishing, yabbing. This is an interesting one. I used to love ferreting. So the ferreting.
I was telling my kids about ferreting recently.
Catching rabbits, all that. We'd go out. Dad would take us out. Work involved too. So to make a bit of money for the kids, Dad would take us out. We'd go cutting wood on Sundays or stump picking and things like that. So you learnt. And with Dad having his own business, whenever there was a day off school, he'd just rip the doona off the bed, you're coming. So there's no option there. So, and just that freedom, like things, like you couldn't do it now. Like even when I tell our boys this, where we lived in town, it was a double block, virtually a vacant block behind, cross a road, and there was a lake there and a swamp around it. And I would often after school, if I didn't have footy training or anything, and study obviously wasn't high on the priority at the time, but I would often just grab the shotgun, gun belt over, and walk down through the vacant block, across the road, through the swamp. If you did that now,
you'd be locked up.
There'd be police swarming over you. So, yeah, it was just, great freedom. And like, I suppose something that our boys that now are 19 and 17, they used to love going back to my mum and dad's when they could to get a little bit of a taste for that. I've probably lost every little bit of country element I ever built over 16 years now, because I've obviously been in Melbourne for a long time and now up here for the last 7 years. So, but it was great. It was great, and the local community footy club environment. You lived at the footy club. I lived there. I was playing, under 14s, and then you play under 16s, and then when I'm still under 14, I was playing some senior footy. And so
was your dad playing?
Dad had not playing. He'd finished. He used to actually do a bit of umpiring, but I'd be over there. Like the senior football training would be Tuesday and Thursday night. The juniors would generally be Wednesday, so that'd be 3 nights a week. I'd just be there straight after school and probably get home at 7:30, 8 o'clock. You ride your bike everywhere. You're not relying on parents driving you anywhere except for the weekends when there was a lot of travel with sport, and obviously coming to Melbourne a lot for the rep side. So your parents, it's a big sacrifice for your parents when maybe for 15 weeks in a row, they're getting up at 3:30, 4 a.m. in the morning on a Sunday because you've played somewhere Saturday, and they're driving me to Melbourne just to go for an hour training run, have breakfast and come home. Like big commitment. That's a 4-hour drive, so 8 hours in total for the day. So, but yeah, it was awesome. Wonderful upbringing.
Now, October 2002. You'd just been in New Orleans the week before. First night in Bali. Take me back to that night.
Yeah, for myself and was Mick Martin, my teammate. Yeah, it was our first night there. Caught up with a really good friend of mine from Perth and a friend of his for dinner in Cooter, and we were actually heading towards the Surrey Club, but we crossed the road and went across the road at Paddy's because it was only, would have only been like 9:30, maybe 10 o'clock, a bit later, and just thought we'll go across the road because at least we'll be able to hear each other in there, have a beer, good chat, maybe go across the Surrey Club later because you go to the Surrey Club, it's usually just chockers and you couldn't hear yourself think. So yeah, unbeknownst to us, we're only in there probably 15, 20 minutes, and then there was the first of a suicide bomber in there, which we had no idea about, and that was the first of 2 or 3 blasts that night. And what followed where we were was obviously across the road, the car bomb out the front of the Surrey Club. So yeah, like I said, it's only now that you understand that the suicide bomber from where we're standing on the edge of the dance floor, not dancing because that's not my forte, or my other
big
couple
guy,
of mates.
6'3", coming from nil.
Yeah, they
You'd
were
have
just
some moves
leaning on the side bar there as it was all going on around us. But yeah, there's a suicide bomber there. It was only 5 metres away, so just incredibly lucky.
A huge bomb blast on the island of Bali has killed at least 182 people in the worst terrorist attack since September the 11th.
Daylight revealed the extent of the devastation to the Balinese town of Kuta. Piles of wreckage where the popular Sari nightclub once stood. Many only just made it out before the club collapsed.
I suppose for me, my strongest memories, and they do, that it's still there, but it's in a place where it doesn't. We've done a lot of work on it and got it in a place where you respect and understand it's part of your life, but it doesn't define me, and you try and push forward. But the first things that come to mind, the force, the sheer force of the explosion when it hit me, like I thought I'd been shot. And playing AFL at that elite level for 12 or 13 years to that stage, like never been hit that hard. Blinded by the flash, which obviously is the explosion, and deafening the sound, like perforated eardrums instantly. But again, I feel very fortunate after being in the unfortunate situation there, and it happens, then I feel like I was fortunate all the way through. So I was able to pick myself up off the ground. My panic was I couldn't open my eyes. It felt like minutes, but it was just that flash of the explosion was blinding. So, and when the vision did return, obviously then you're dealing with, well, the awareness of, geez, the building's on fire, people on fire. And I remember looking over my left shoulder, it's like flames are shooting up my shirt, my neck, and I'm on fire. So everyone wants to talk about, what do you do in that situation? I go, well, I'm not going to lie, it's panic. It's only natural. But the one thing that happened for me, which I guarantee anyone in that situation would do the same thing, you think about your mates. And I reached across, Mick, my teammate, was standing next to me, but realised very quickly that it wasn't Mick. It happened to be two girls from a group behind us, who we knew from Melbourne. I feel very fortunate once again because one of the girls, Samantha, we were able to help each other. We had each other to guide, because then you're just trying to get out as quickly as possible. I think we had a 20-metre distance to cover. We got 2/3 of the way. It's like yesterday, thinking how clumsy. I've tripped over, but that was never the case. We couldn't see that well. We're tripping over people out of desperation to get out. And the other factor was we couldn't hear that, because of perforated eardrums, that car bomb just up the road at the Surrey Club. So that was the whole plan, was suicide bomber, cause as much devastation, flush people out on the street, and then bang into another one. So that was the blast that just blasted us back into the building we were trying to escape. So I remember being at the front, and I'm petrified because I'm alone. I could see my hands they'd melted, really. And I'm just thinking about Mick, my teammate, Peter, my mate, his mate Gary, who I'd met for the first time, and I'm looking at a building, it's ablaze and tumbling down. I thought, I'm never going to see them again. And then, I don't know how, but Mick, he appeared through the smoke and rubble. He dragged me up the road as far away as possible. He couldn't get transport, but then he got me on the back of a Balinese guy who had a moped scooter, and he just said, take you into the Hard Rock Hotel. Now, you're probably sitting there thinking, as your listeners, why are you going back to the Hard Rock? I'd been there for 10 years. I had no idea where a hospital was because I'd never needed one. But what Mick knew and what I knew, go back to the hotel. There's a doctor on duty. So Mick, true to his word, was right behind me. And yeah, so extremely lucky to make it out of there. We got back to the hotel, doctor on duty, assessed pretty quickly, and then, we're loaded in the back of an ambulance and taken to the Sangla Hospital in Denpasar, which was a hospital for the locals. I now have an awareness that at the time there was some more private Western hospitals there, and now they're everywhere. But we ended up at the local hospital there.
You're flown back to Australia and you're in hospital with burns to 50% of your body. What is the first thing you remember when you came around?
Firstly I was, intensive care, multiple skin grafts, find out you got burns to 50% of your body and the shrapnel and other things. And then you're kind of told you'll be in hospital for 8 to 10 weeks. And my wife Narissa and I are getting married in December of that year, so postponed the wedding, all those things, but we never did. And I set about, I had a plan. I didn't know burn injuries, didn't understand it, but once again, what clicks in, you've been an elite athlete for 13 years, so bang, goals. Footy's not part of it, more short term. Okay, can I get out of here in 5 or 6 weeks, whatever? Then the wedding, can we get there? And just all the steps that you need to, the path, the journey to get the ultimate goal, which was, for me at that stage, it was the wedding. That was it. I got myself into a situation where I got out in 4 weeks, which was awesome. The wedding went ahead as scheduled, which was amazing. And people ask often about the rehabilitation. I'm not going to lie, it wasn't easy, but I feel like I was in a really good place to handle this because I was an elite athlete. So to me, it was just training. I wasn't someone that was trying to overcome this and then try and get back to work as a banker or an accountant or a school teacher. Training was my life. So it was different, obviously, these injuries, but the fact that I could dedicate just all my time, and clearly the goal setting was just part and parcel of what we do as an athlete, and having the plan and having great support around me, I just got to work. Now, when you lose 12 kilos of weight and the first time you get on a pin-loaded bench press machine and you think someone's left it on at full-toed odds and you look around, there's only 2 plates there, you got a little bit of work to do, but that's what we do as athletes. So, so I won't lie, it wasn't easy, but I felt like I was in a really good situation to confront this just because of what I did for a living. And that probably coincides with a little bit too, so much focus. There's so many innocent people and obviously Australians caught up in what had happened. And I struggled a bit that there was so much focus on me, but I understood why, and it's because of what I did for work, really. That's the only reason that people could associate with me, because the AFL and the brand is obviously a big brand in this country, so people could associate with me. So although I was uncomfortable about it, because I've heard some remarkable stories of so many other people, as you would have, but it's just, it's just that acceptance. I can't do much about it. I've just got to really just get on with trying to rebuild my life. And the rehab obviously is a huge part of it.
That attention, the young boy growing up in Neil would have been, mate, just keep your head in, that country environment. Don't be a big head. You put in your place.
Don't go down Media Street.
Yeah.
My old coach, Dennis Pagan at North Melbourne.
Yeah. And people wanted to know. They wanted to know, following your story. When did you decide that the goal, because you've just said a couple of things. I just want to unpack that for the audience, because sometimes people will listen to this, and I'm proud to say we have a large non-athletic audience. Yep. Athletes just click into gear. I can work with an athlete, they do ACL and they go, right, 9 months, and you just work backwards.
Yeah, you do. You think of funner stories around that too. I grabbed my physio at the Alfred Hospital when I'm in intensive care, and she was amazing. And we just hit it off. She had military background. It was just, the synergy was awesome. But also said, where's the whiteboard? She said, well, I said, get me a whiteboard. If you can, please give me a whiteboard so I could map things out, set a visual. I need to see what we're doing.
All over you. He loved his whiteboard. So what did you put on the whiteboard?
It was more around the, can I get physio twice a day? She made the extra effort. I don't think that's meant to be the case, but she did. It's okay, I want to get out of intensive care within 2 weeks. So they're just these markers along the way.
And just go back, because it's now part of your story, but 50% burns to your body, mate. That's some people in hospital for 3 or 4 months, maybe more.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, though, I didn't know much about burns. But again...
Did that help, though, because you
didn't? It did. But again, the whole mindset piece, I just clicked into gear. I could have easily been, stuff this. Why me? How could this happen to me? Poor me. And wallow in that self-pity. But I made a very quick decision that, hey, I'm pretty lucky to be alive here. I've got a second chance. I've got to make every post a winner here. And in terms of, I just couldn't allow. There's a bit of I remember mum and dad, in particular dad, he was angry, which I understand because if that was our sons, it would be the same response.
But also your dad's generation, like my dad's generation.
Yeah, and he got exposed to a bit too because Dad came to Darwin with Narissa, my wife, and I think it was Brendan, one of my brothers, and he got exposed to a bit in the Darwin hospital too when they were looking for me in there. So, but with that, there's a bit of negativity there, but I just parked that. I can't have an ounce of negativity. I just need to, I've got a plan in my mind. I'll get that whiteboard, put some of it down, and I just need all the positivity around me because it was a big job at hand, that's for sure. So the obvious goal for us was that wedding date. So that was December 14. Now this happens on the 12th of October. I'm in Melbourne, by about probably the 14th, 15th. I'm in a coma for a week. So I'm pushing shit uphill. But again, the mindset, the support around me and just, yeah, I feel like I said, I feel like I was just unfortunate, obviously, to be in a situation, but so well placed to handle it because of being an elite athlete and also because of my journey. Because there's some significant setbacks along the way, not with injury. Because ironically, I laugh about this with my kids. I played AFL for 13 years and never had one surgery, not one.
You never won.
It all happened with this.
Mate, I played AFL for 8 weeks now. I broke my left hand.
Yeah. So that resilience of some of those setbacks of not, like I said earlier, the big fish, small pond, get to Collingwood and kind of go okay, but then struggle and move to Adelaide and bit of a struggle, get in the side, then you miss on the premiership and then you lose one, then you get suspended, but the ability to bounce back. So I think that period of time held me in good stead to handle some of this.
I'm really curious to know, what point did you decide that this wasn't just about getting back to health, that this was about getting back to playing? And what did your wife think? I have to know, what did she think when you told her?
It was probably when I was starting to tick off some of these milestones and work towards the wedding. It was probably, I didn't tell my wife at the time because I was smart enough not to mention football at that stage because the wedding was the absolute focus.
Who taught you that? Good
as
man.
it should be.
Any young lad listening to this, write that shit down, lads.
But as I was getting closer and knew the wedding were going to make it, I'd certainly thoughts had moved towards football. That process to get back, I did learn how to walk again. It was because I was so weak and lost so much weight. I think the first time I ran might have been Melbourne Cup Day when I was still in hospital, out the front of the Alfred Hospital, Faulkner Park. I ran probably less than 50 metres, and with every step I nearly fell over because I was so weak. And again, my old school training mentality, I said to Henrietta, my physio, said, that wasn't great, but what do we got next? Surely I've got a few reps of this. And she said, no, that's it for the day. I said, it was a light bulb moment because, no, there's got to be more. And she sat me down. She said, look, I need to explain it and put some context around this. I said, okay, I'm all ears, I'm listening. She said, you don't understand the extent of these burn injuries. The only way I can equate it, it's the equivalent of having a triple bypass. So she put it in I suppose, different language, a bit of a different lens on it, that then I realised, and I'm stubborn. I don't like, at that stage, it was hard to accept that help too. Because when you're fit and strong, you're bulletproof, you go and do it all yourself. This time, I wasn't fit and strong. And I certainly wasn't bulletproof. So I needed help. So I had to take on board that and had to work, which you do in a team environment, obviously. But that was the light bulb moment because it just put a different perspective on it, how I need to approach this. But yeah, with the goals, it's certainly, like I said, as I got closer to the wedding, the plan was then, and it was never about just playing one game of AFL. It was about, I'm going to get back and continue my career. Now, once the wedding was amazing, that was near Christmas, obviously, so you have that break, you come back, and then I'm back at the club. And that was interesting because that was a time probably where my wife, Narissa, had hit her the hardest because after what had happened and she wasn't with me, then we're together the whole way through. She hardly left my side day and night in that hospital. I wouldn't be here without her. Like, unbelievable.
She's a good South Australian girl.
Yeah, certainly is. And with that, then the wedding, so surrounded by people, we're together, and then all of a sudden, I'm going back to training. She'd dealt with it really well, but I think then it was those moments, she hadn't yet gone back to work, and I'm at training and I'm gone all day, so it all comes flooding back. But like I said, the goal was not to play one game, it was to continue my career. But as that process and the journey to get back and play was unfolding, it was just a realising and understanding, like, the information around my health. I was progressing well, but the injuries I had could take up to 2 years to heal properly. The lungs and things, the internal organs, things like that. I was getting really good feedback, but I was just, although football had been my life, it was just probably the realisation at that point that, hey, I nearly lost my life. Health and family are the most important things. I need to prioritise that more. And I also was looking at, talked earlier, we had an unbelievable team at North Melbourne for a long period of time, but that was changing a bit too. And ultimately, it ended up being about a month before I got back and played that AFL game. I knew in my own mind and just discussed it with my wife that whenever it would be I'd get back, it'd be a return and a retirement game. And luckily it was only a month later.
Round 11, 2003. That's less than 1 year following the Bali blast.
Yep. So I've been back playing reserve grade.
So I studied exercise physiology and we did a bit on burns.
Yeah.
I can't comprehend that, and I'm sure you've had lots of medics and allied health professionals say the way you recovered, obviously mind over matter, you did everything possible to fast track that. You're also young, but if someone busts a clavicle or you bust a bone, if you're going to bust anything, bust a bone. It heals a lot quicker. You do a tendon. When I saw you, I was drinking with one hand. I'd done my
that's right.
Full tear of my distal bicep tendon. Takes a couple of months. But burns can take years, but it's also the nervous system, the rewiring, where you can have pins and needles, or you can have a displacement. Did you have any of that with limbs that it didn't feel?
I wasn't too bad. I played again for the first time on my 29th birthday, which is the 14th of March, in a VFL reserves practice match. So we're talking 5 months after it happened. I was back playing. And that progressed. So I played probably 7 or 8 games before I got back to AFL. There was a moment when I returned to training in January. We were training these ovals near Princes Park in Carlton, was at North Melbourne, and it was in the morning, we were running laps, and I wore, because I had the pressure garments on both legs, both arms and both hands just to help with the healing process and trying to eliminate as much of that keloid scarring as possible. So I then wore garments like long sleeves and that over top. And also that time of year, sunburn's an issue. So I'm covered in sunscreen and all long sleeves and everything. And that's why I wore the long sleeves jumper and gloves, was just for more protection when I played. But I'll never forget doing laps one morning in our warm-up, and someone kicked the footy and there was a bit of dew on the grass and it skid off with a bit of speed and hit me in the leg. Oh, the pain. I didn't let on to anyone, but I thought this could be tough, what I'm embarking on.
Just hit the nerves. And
but what it was a donor site, which were more sensitive where the skin grafts, the skin had been taken from, because where the burns, second and third degree, it's burned so deep, but these donor sites, that's where the nerve endings and things like that. So but it was all right. I still can't, there was obviously pain there, but I can't remember now. But I was just, it's amazing again, the power of the mind, the plan, having the goal. It doesn't always go smoothly. You have some roadblocks, and then how do you work through it and progress? But when you are so focused on something, it's amazing what you can put aside. And for me, it was obviously there was pain there, but I was able to just park that because I was just desperate to get back, and it was to prove a point. I never let on to anyone, but it was prove a point to me that no matter what the situation, you can climb your way out of it. But then the other part was there was a desire deep down inside of me that I was I'm not going to be defeated by a bunch of what I classify as just gutless cowards that did what they did. Hey, innocent people on a Saturday night out, just cowards. So I certainly didn't want to be defeated. And
My understanding is you'd already told the coach that this was your last game, but nobody else knew. So you're running out in front of 80,000 people at the hallowed turf, the MCG. The whole country is watching, and you're the only one in the stadium who knows it's goodbye. What was going through your mind in that very moment?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Telstra Dome for a match of huge significance. It's the Kangaroos and Richmond, 8th versus 7th, but this match is much, much more. Tonight, we see the return of a hero, not of a game, but of humanity. 237 days ago, Jason McCartney's world, that of our country and so many others around this world, exploded literally when the Sari Club and Paddy's Bar in Bali were ripped apart by a bomb.
That game, to make it back to AFL, and it was different because there's so much focus and attention. I haven't got a call from the then Prime Minister, John Howard, so it's not my usual...
Did Johnny ring up?
It's not my usual match day preparation.
After one of his early morning walks, what did John Howard say?
I can't even remember it, actually. He wished me well and you've done well and things like that, but it was just... I was living in Albert Park in Melbourne at the time and just trying to do what I normally do leading into a night game, and I was put on a doco or something, a movie I was watching for a little while in the afternoon. The phone rang and I had no idea. And so,
you think it's one of your mates taking the piss?
I had been word of it could happen, so I didn't get caught out in that regard. But yeah, an amazing night. Like when you're involved in a team, like it's about my focus going into that. I understood the enormity of the night. There's only couple of key people at the club that I'd told that week when they told me I was selected that I'd be retiring. And then that Friday morning after our team meeting, I was in the leadership group, we had a meeting and I let the other guys know. So no one else knew. So the thing for me, I'm just trying to focus all my energy, play your role, and we've got to get the win. That was the most important thing. So it was different though, because I'd played a bit forward, but predominantly my career and the best part of my career was playing as a key defender. So I started on the interchange. We got a lot of rotations now. There wasn't many there, so I spent the whole first quarter running up and down, waiting for the opportunity. Got put on in the second quarter. I knew I'd probably play forward. Got involved a bit, gave away a couple of free kicks. Might have had a couple of kicks, wasn't much.
Got a goal.
Third quarter was a bit similar, but my fear though in the third quarter was I come in at three-quarter time. I'm not going that well. I could be back on the bench, but coach... Danny Laidley at the time kept me on the ground, and I was lucky enough to kick a goal early in the last quarter and had a hand in the one that got us across the line at the end. It was remarkable. So it was an amazing way to finish. Yeah, and I reflect now and to think from where I and so many other innocent people were to what happened, but then that recovery, the wedding was amazing, and the fairy tale ending like that. I could not have scripted it to pan out the way it did after the position I and others were in. So remarkable. I've got the vision of it, and if I'm presenting somewhere, and not as much now, but you see it, and it was sort of came back about 3 weeks ago when the Dennis Cometti unfortunately passed away, and it was a Channel 9 game, and he was calling. I think at the end, it was his call that fairy tales do come true.
Ball forward runs the ball. McCartney toe pokes it. Picked up by Harding. He goes in. Another lead change. Too little, too late. Fairy tales do come true.
Yeah, and it was that whole period too. I found myself, it was different for me because not only dealing with media, but you're dealing with a lot of media that were beyond just AFL. Like I remember the day I was invited to Canberra and Parliament House, and you're doing some things there. Myself and my friend from Perth in Peter Hughes and another lad from Tasmania at the time, when I did retire, we got called back to Bali was summoned to appear in court. So the first Australians to ever give evidence in trial against terrorism, and that was the world media. So it was just a whole different scale of attention and media that the boy from Neil had not dealt with that before, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. You talked earlier in our discussion about compartmentalising, and you've obviously done some serious work on this over the years. So can you talk me through that and what really moved the needle for you to help you be able to compartmentalise?
I do think about it, and I think part the upbringing, but then the journey and the experience I'd had. Like I talked earlier, it feels like I look back and it goes, well, I was really well placed to handle some of this through the journey and the experiences along the way.
So upbringing, good parents, country environment,
Yeah,
hardworking,
and then that up until that I'd played AFL footy for 12 years, and it hadn't been smooth sailing, like Collingwood to Adelaide and then to North. And, you know, you talk about the one that got away, like, because of what happened 3 years later, so 99 to 2002 with the Bali, like I sit there and go, well, would have been nice to have the medallion and be part of it, but who really cares? Because unfortunately, I and many others went through what we had to. So it just puts, again, we both still work in sport. And AFL's been my life. I've been 36 years straight now and love every moment of it. But you go through something like this, or friends, family, other health scares and things, it puts everything in perspective, doesn't it? So I did a bit of work with a counsellor. There's nothing magic about it, but I think the magic was the ability to actually, the power of when you're ready, because some people take a long time. Whenever you're ready, just talking about it. I think it was partly that. And he would talk to me a lot about, you know, triggers and different things. Like we went back to Bali with him and my wife just when I returned to just play the AFL practice match. So that was my first practice match, and I wanted to go that weekend because physically I was starting to heal, but I felt like I needed that, confront that mental component as well. So going back to the site, he talked about, you know, sight, sound, smell, things like that. So we talked a lot about that.
Exposure therapy.
Yeah. So we talked a lot about that.
Had you done much mental skills training? Because in sport now we say the three things you can train: your craft, your body, your brain. I don't imagine the mid-90s.
No, we did. It was around, but not much done on it.
It was more deficit focused back then, wasn't it? You're dropping a specky, go see the psychologist and sorts.
Yeah, but it was, the other part was being in a football club environment too, and I was happy to talk about it. But you need to anyway, because like you're coming into a locker room where a bloke's sitting right next to you, like they're seeing your burns, like it's probably traumatic for them too, to be honest. And again, I just feel like what's helped me heal and deal with this too is over the journey, I got myself into a position where I feel like I got some control back. The situation doesn't control me. And I've talked about it that many times. I kept a journal that became a book. There's been a lot of work in the corporate space over 20 years. Stuff I did at the AFL, it's helped me heal. It's helped me, it's helped my wife. I know it's challenging, like I said, for her, but it kind of has flushed it out there where I can sometimes think when I've done a presentation, not early days, but once you get 5, 10, 15 years in, that you're talking about someone else. Now that's not the case. It's me and it's our journey, but it's a pretty powerful position to be in too after going through what we went through.
I felt that emotional shift with you today. Sometimes you're talking about it almost like you're here in the balcony looking down in the studio. And then other times I felt like you're in the story. Whether that's planned or whether it's just through doing it a lot of times, I felt like you've taken me on a story today. Yeah. And do you feel that shift sometimes where you're sort of looking at what happened and then other times you're getting into it?
Yeah, probably. There's not a moment of that night that I don't remember like yesterday. Like it's still there, but that ability to accept, understand, and control it a bit. Like the one thing that was so hard early, like is I knew what I went through, but then the vision on 60 Minutes or other vision, and it was happening all over the world. It was like,
and then every year
that was hard. That was hard. Like I went to the North Melbourne Grand Final breakfast that first year. They had an award for me, amazing. That, you know, there's usually a couple of thousand people there. And then the images that I would have on my presentation I'm sharing I was fine with, but they had some others that flashed up and it really hit me. And that was only 1 year in. So yeah, it never goes away, but it's about, okay, like I said, I'm lucky, I've got a second chance at life. And if you want to be miserable and live a life of a hermit and things like that, well, that's a waste. I've got a chance.
It's been really evident today, mate. You haven't erased the memory. It's still there.
Yeah.
And you go back to the Oval or something pops up on TV, it's maybe a little bit more raw, but you've got the skills and you've done the work to navigate that. And I think that's what life is. It's messy. Yeah, it doesn't always go the way you want, but it can also be beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I found myself, obviously December, when a terrorist attack happened here in Sydney at Bondi too. That knocked me around a bit. Just it took you back there again. It took you back and the thoughts of, that's here, that's right here. And then you feel like you're intrigued and you're watching, and you just can't help but think about the people who are involved. And like in the situation that I and others found ourselves in Bali, it's like my heart goes out not only to the injured or the families who lost loved ones, it's the people who were innocent bystanders who do some amazing things to help so many others, what they get exposed to. So if I go back to what happened to us in Bali, like my teammate Mick Martin, he didn't suffer the physical injuries I sustained, nowhere near. But I think the mental scars for Mick cut far, far deeper because he wasn't as badly injured. He just got exposed to so much more. Where I had the other side, I'm badly injured. I saw a bit. Thank goodness I didn't see much more.
So did Mick struggle after?
Yeah, he had his struggles. Yeah, he had struggles. And again, that was the era where, and I'm happy to speak about the fact it's not a sign of weakness if you reach out and ask for help, whether it be a psychologist or a counsellor. Simplify things. That's my go. I just simplify. This is complex. I'm going to simplify it. Address the situation as soon as you can, because then you have the opportunity to get some control back before it becomes an uncontrollable. So if we've got a cut, what do we do if it's a kid? You put a Band-Aid on it. You don't let it fester away and become an uncontrollable, do you? But I do appreciate and understand when something like this happens. Naturally at the hospital, at the Alfred, they're really forward in, we've got counselling here, I'm going, yeah, that's good. I don't need it. But I knew at the right time that I had a guy that I've worked with in the past that I'd go to and has been, a part of our lives for 20 odd years beyond.
Thank God that's changed for young men now, especially, that when you are struggling psychologically, you go see someone. And a couple of boys I know in different codes I work across will now just say it's like seeing a physio. If you're torn your hammy, one of a young players said he tore a brain muscle. And mate, what a great analogy. So go see the mind physio and get those skills, because you never know when you're going to draw on them. So that is one thing I'm so grateful that has changed, because growing up in that era where you were, it would have been
there's a stigma around it then. Like, come on, harden up. Yeah. And I like, there's teammates of mine at North Melbourne. We didn't know at the time, and it was a bit of that. And they've gone on beyond their careers, and they're doing a lot of advocacy and work in the mental health space, because they were struggling. None of us knew that. I was like, harden up. But so we've come a long way for the good in that regard.
I do want to talk about leadership, although we've been talking about leadership throughout. I think your personal leadership shown as a player, and then for you to do the rehab. But GWS, you've been there now, is it 7 years, 8 years?
What is it now? Yeah, this is coming into year 9. My first 2 years was up and down out of Melbourne. So this is season 7, living up here in the EGM role. Before that was list manager,
I did a lot of research before today, and a few things kept coming up around your leadership philosophy. Culture first, performance follows was point 1. Point 2, get the right people in, not just talent. 3, player-led leadership, not top-down. And number 4 is the right balance between challenge and support. Knowing a bit about you, that was pretty good.
Yep.
Let's pick one of those.
Sounds pretty close.
Which one do you want to double-click on?
I think if I touch on that player-led leadership model, I think that's really important, the involvement, because the reality is in what we do, the work's done during the week. Like, my view, it's changed so much. There's not that much coaches can do on game day. Let's be honest. I think the media think they can still, he was out coached on the day. Not so sure. Like your work's done during the week. So how do you get your athletes and a critical mass through your leadership group or associate coaches or emerging leaders? How do you build that out and have them at a level, because they're an extension of the coaching group. That's what they are. They are the extension, and they are delivering on what your game style is, what you've done pre-season, what you want to implement game day. The coach is just really pre-game, quarter time, half time. You send some messages out. Maybe yesteryear you could control a bit more, not as much now. So there's a lot of, like, we're all doing so much in that space, and you can lose a game and I'll get feedback, oh, the leadership was poor, and yeah, whatever. It's never finished, is it? It's like anything. We're never the finished product. It evolves, and you'll have patches where it'll be going really well and you'll think you've been able to address some areas, and then naturally enough in a game something might rear its head that, we're not quite there yet. You just keep working away at it.
I don't think some people who aren't involved in sport have any idea how competitive it is in AFL, the NRL.
Well, you got NRL, AFL. When you get to that level, you got to remember the other side's usually pretty darn good.
Yeah, yeah. You don't have it, look, especially with salary cap. It's been designed so
they're running similar programs.
So you try and get the edge with that leadership work. Is that something you've done at GWS?
More particularly the last couple of years we have, yeah. Like we like anyone, when you went through the COVID period and all of a sudden we had the considerable cutbacks on what you could spend in your programming. So then you're really just focusing on, your key rocks. It's coaching, it's high performance, medical, getting those things right. So we had to do a lot of that in-house between myself and the senior coach and Adam Kingsley, but it's been the last couple of years. Because for Adam and myself, we can share experiences and we can do a lot in that space. But again, someone or some people coming in who have experienced the education to have the curriculum behind it as well, I feel that's very important, because then you want to develop and grow leaders as well. So we can still do the storytelling piece at times, which is really important, but yeah, someone that's got that curriculum, that framework is really important. So yeah, we've invested heavily in that over the last couple of years, and feels like we're getting some change, but we still, the last couple of seasons we've just fallen short come finals time. So
you got close a couple of years ago. You got to the big dance.
Yeah, so we've need to rectify that. Yeah, I suppose there's just other components too. It's what do you got there? The culture.
Culture first, performance follows. I think that's really summarising what you do day to day.
I think you need to have a strong environment, don't you? Like we see it a lot, both programs, our men's program, our women's program as well now. It's having, most of our athletes are not from Sydney, because we're only 15 years into, so there's only 3 from Sydney. So in our men's program, 3 players, so everyone relocates. So culture, environment, it's critical anyway, but it's even more important for us to have that right, to give then the athlete the opportunity to perform. It's pretty simple, I think. If things aren't great off-field, not saying you can't perform on-field, but you're putting up some barriers, aren't you? So and it was before my time. There's been a lot of fantastic work done by a lot of people before I came in to build this really strong foundation of our football club, which for us, although it's the elite competition, we involve families incredibly well. Draft a player, draft a family. And when we play at home, we could have 150, 200 people travelling from regional New South Wales, ACT, or a lot from Victoria to watch their sons play in the men's or their daughters in AFLW season. Yeah, we probably do things that I would have been exposed to when I was in country Victoria. It's like a big country football club in a way. After the game, back to the club, all the families there, coaches, the interaction, the connection, it's really important. It's inherent on us to do it well, but it's even more so in the market we're in, because otherwise you'll just lose your talent. So you need to, culture environment needs to be strong. We see it more than ever, especially in this market that's so competitive, but also the fact that we're only going into our 15th year. We need to be around the mark all the time, because I think when you haven't got as much local talent, the opposition clubs from Victoria are trying to poach back all the time. So the moment we can't demonstrate we're a chance to win the big dance. So we'd be in strife. So we need to be consistently challenging. But it's underpinned by a strong culture environment. Winning a premiership, I'd love, and not for me, I'd love for our group of young men in the men's program to get to experience, although I didn't play on that day, I've seen it at the Crows when I was there. I experienced it at North Melbourne, although I didn't play, and I've experienced it at the Western Bulldogs when I was working in list management there. So I would love nothing more than for that players and that group of staff that hasn't experienced this before to get that opportunity. Because in sport, you achieve that. That'll be the best day of your life. There's no doubt about it.
Hey, I've loved today.
No, thank you.
I've really, really enjoyed it.
Very enjoyable.
I've enjoyed the authenticity. I felt today at times you're a very good storyteller, not just in sport. You could apply this external.
And you do take for granted, don't you, what you've done. I'm just reflecting back, playing before Bali happened, and that sort of crossroads I talked about when I was at the end of the time at Adelaide and North came. You kind of look, well, what could be next outside? And you go, well, I haven't got this skill, I haven't got that skill. But then when you finish playing, you realise the amazing bank of skills that you gained over that long period that you can apply. If you've got a really good appetite to work and evolve and learn.
So I've always loved the dance between, like, I speak sport and I speak corporate, and they are different languages. And I reckon it takes 2 or 3 years. Like if you go to a new sport, say you went as a consultant to basketball or you go to rugby union, you sit in your first meeting and you go like, what are they talking about? Like it is a different language. Yeah. But then after a while, you catch up and you totally have transferable skills.
Yeah. No, very enjoyable.
Watch this space. I'll see you next Christmas lunch.
Well, we don't want to fast forward the year because then we're getting very old. But
you think, do we put something in between?
I think we need there's a Christmas in July, isn't there, surely?
Oh, done. We'll do that. I'll send this to Dougie and I'm sure he'll take
Perfect.
it on.
No, thanks very much. Great to chat.
Pleasure.